My name is Taryn Tomlinson, and I'm joining you all the way from the other side of the world in Cape Town, sunny South Africa. Now, if you are like me and you love to travel and have a sense of adventure and wanderlust, you might be rearing or even itching to get out there and explore. However, like me, you might also have the restriction of facing physical barriers out in the environment, or have a disability yourself, or look after someone with a disability, in which getting up and exploring and going out there isn't as easy as what it might seem. Now, we as persons with disabilities, or those looking after persons with disabilities, know all too well the realities of travel. It's not as accommodating as what we need it and would like it to be. This often hinders many people from simply going out there and experiencing life, having to deal with inaccessible transportation, inaccessible bathrooms, inaccessible accommodations, and inaccessible activities. Added to that, we also need to face the stigmatization and ignorance of some people out there when they relate to persons with disabilities. That being said, however, I still believe that there's a great movement and a great change that is actually happening in the world, and that now is the time to assert your right to free movement. Now is really that time to say, I am not going to be able to explore if I shackle myself by the fears that I have of going out there to confront life. So that is what I'm coming here today. Well, why I'm on this talk today. I'm very, very excited to be here and to share my experience with all of you. And I really am sorry that I couldn't be there online and in person as I would have liked to, but the time difference just won't allow for it. So I will be watching this afterwards, and I hope that there will be a recorded session that I can tune in and try and see if there's a way that I can communicate with the rest of the audience out there. So as explained before, my name is Taryn Tomlinson. I wear many hats. My work predominantly first was in social development, and I've had an NGO called the Bambini Dream Foundation. We help underprivileged kids with music and art therapy and cognitive therapies. I put up my hat with Bambini Dream after 10 years and decided to go full force into another passion of mine, which is making universal access a standard within hotels and within tourist accommodations and facilities. And the reason why this was such a big passion for me is because as a wheelchair user, it was so important that I felt that I could make a positive contribution in changing the barriers that I experience when I go into a restaurant, when I go into a public space, or when I go into a hotel. And that is how I started my journey into access auditing, which then translated into us having a travel arm of the company called Able to Travel. Able to Travel is about providing information to travelers with disabilities coming to South Africa as to which accommodation and restaurants and places are accessible and to which degree. Now, I'm not really your perfect profile of an adventure traveler, if I'll be very honest with you. I'm more of the lie on the beach, having a mocktail or a cocktail, watching the sunset in a relaxed space like on Zanzibar. But somehow in my life, I found myself doing some crazy and epic things. Starting just here in Cape Town, I had done the first adaptive paragliding, where it's a paraglide, it's a wheelchair essentially, and you tightly strapped in, and it's very safe. And we went paragliding off Table Mountain, and that was an experience I'd always wanted to do. I was just always afraid at the landing, right? I've then also done other experiences. I've lived overseas in Italy for a couple of years, which was a great desire of mine, and got to travel around Italy, experiencing the country and the countryside, but also experiencing a lot of the architectural barriers that I came across. And then in 2020, I decided, together with a group of friends, that finally, after much of their begging me to come along, I was going to join their group and go to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Now, we were a group of 5 people, 2 people who use wheelchairs, and 3 amputees. And we set up on the journey together with able-bodied support climbers and friends that went along with us on the journey. Before, I feel I almost have to put a caveat, because when I say I climb Kilimanjaro, there's like, people go like, how do you climb? So let me just be honest. I was carried up most of the time by our porters, who were these amazing men with strong muscles. They really made it possible for us to get on the top. Now, this is not because I was lazy. It was because the boulders and the tree stumps and some of the terrain on a mountain, as you can imagine, it's a mountain, is not very accessible. But we decided to take the challenge because ultimately it was about proving that it is your attitude that determines your altitude. And that's the line that my friends really got me on when they eventually got me to go. Because they had asked me for 2 years prior, Taryn, would you come and do the climb with us? Taryn, would you come and do the climb? And as I explained to you, I explained to them the same thing. Maybe I'll wait for you at the bottom of the pool, lazing by the pool with a cocktail and a book. However, at the end of 2019, this friend of mine said to me, look, this time you really have to come with us. And I thought about it earnestly. And I thought that now would probably be a good time to go, because I had been starting my company, Livable Universal Access Consultants. And I really wanted to start it in a bang and really have a campaign that started with a bang. And so I said yes. Now, between the time that you say yes to something as scary and as daring and adventurous to the time that you actually fulfill your objective, if you ever get to fulfill your objective, there are a couple of spaces in order to get there, right? So I thought I'd just chat to you briefly about some of the steps that you would need to take in order to take adventure travel serious, or just fulfill some dream that you have of doing something really, really exhilarating. Now, as I said, this can't be a cookie cutter kind of model, because every person is different. Everybody's different. Disability is different. Everybody's body, is different and will be able to handle different stresses. But there is a set formula that I use when I make the decisions and planning, in order to do something like this, whether it's adventure travel or just travel in general. And I thought I'd just go over some of those tips, because I know for a lot of people, it could be very scary when needing to face those barriers that we spoke about earlier on. So let's get to the first one, right? The first step is probably one of the most difficult steps, and that is to find your tribe, right? To find that group of people who are supportive, who believe in your dreams, who want to encourage you and motivate you to go out there and to experience life. And sometimes also some crazy people within those tribe who would actually say, yes, I'm going to join you and I'm going to come with you, okay? It's so important to have this tribe, and Guts to Glory was that tribe. It was that group of people that decided, we've got a united cause. This is something that we believe in. This is something that we want to do, and we want to do it together. Having a tribe also spurs you on in being able to fulfill your dreams, because if you're sitting around a bunch of negative people who think that everything is impossible, or simply just point out all the potential dangers and potential harms and potential failures that might occur, well, yeah, people like that are not really going to get you far. So you have to surround yourself with positive people who believe in you as well, because we know that as persons with disabilities and as parents looking after kids with disabilities, that a support system and a support network is so important. And it's important for everybody in order to live a fulfilled and a happy life. So the first thing is to find your tribe, those people who actually will support you in your crazy ideas. And I promise you, they are out there. The next step, which is step number 2, is the planning stage. Okay, so the planning stage for me is, what are you going to do in order to get yourself from where you are now to the end of the objective? What is it that you need to plan for? So, as anybody would plan a trip, you've got to plan, you've got to decide where you want to go, you've got to look at your flights, you've got to look at all of those things as you would plan a normal trip. However, for a person with a disability or those as a caregiver, you know that we have to go through so much more diligence when planning a trip due to the inaccessible products and services that are available. So this is why planning really, really becomes key. I plan everything to the T, check, double check, just make sure that there are absolutely no I's that have not been dotted or T's crossed. So the planning stage is very, very, very important. Once you've gotten through the planning stage, then it comes down to the preparation, right, in the fulfillment of that plan. The first type of preparation that I would say is so important before you even think about, the clothing and the things that you need in order to fulfill your journey, is the mental preparation that you need to put yourself through. You see, in order to go on any journey that is hard, and adventure journeys generally are hard. They put a lot of stress on your body, but more so it's the stress that they could potentially put on your mind. That mental stress a lot of the time is what determines whether you actually stay behind, or if you have the ability to overcome it, whether you go forward. So I did many things such as visualization on a regular basis. I would visualize myself going up the mountain. I would visualize myself reaching the top. I would visualize myself having a fantastic time. I would visualize laughs. I would visualize camaraderie. And I'd really started to internalize the feeling of already arrived at the peak of my journey, the feeling of already having accomplished it. And that gave me the drive and the motivation to keep pushing on, to do all the other little things that I needed to do in order to eventually fulfill my objective. So the mental preparation is very important. It's very important that you understand why you are doing what you are doing. It's also then very important that you see yourself as successful in doing it. This will help you to not get sidetracked by anxieties or thoughts of, what if this goes wrong, or what if that goes wrong, or what if this goes wrong, or what if that goes wrong. Now, you do need to prepare for the what ifs this goes wrong, but you don't need to mull on it. And my way of thinking of it is, okay, if this is a potential problem along the journey, how do we solve for it? What can we prepare now so that should that moment happen, we'd be prepared? And that is where the preparation comes in place. So focus on the good, focus on the end result, on what it is that you want to achieve. But in your visualization, if you've seen certain barriers that come up, or certain challenges as well, start preparing for that as well. Just so that you can, just so that you can be prepared. I mean, you need to be prepared. So mental preparation is super, super important with that support system behind you in your tribe. Next, it is coming down to the physical preparation. Now, in my case, I decided to work with the Sports Science Institute of South Africa, which is based here in Cape Town, and they're a wonderful rehabilitation center. They have biokineticists and all type of fancy equipments and really great encouraging people. The first thing we did was to have doctors' checks and appointments to make sure that I was indeed healthy enough to even take on a challenge like this. Doctors' results came back clear, and I was good to go, in which they felt my lung capacity, which is what you really, really need to focus on if you're going to do something like climb Kilimanjaro. You need to make sure that your cardiovascular system is good and that your lung capacity is, that it's excellent, that you will be able to make do with a little bit of oxygen that actually is up there on Kilimanjaro or at any altitude. So we did the medical tests, after which we went through a very rigorous physical training program. I think I worked out at gym 3 to 4 times a week, and we did all types of training, not just cardio, but we also did strength training and lifting weights and using resistant belts. So everything really to simulate that movement of pushing the wheelchair, needing to balance myself as well. So went through quite some rigorous physical training. And then, because that isn't even half of the physical, difficulties that you face on the mountain, the other difficulties are, for example, clothing. It's extremely cold on top of the mountain. And so you also have to prepare your clothing, right? That you have the right gear. So once again, comes down to preparation, planning and preparation. If you can sit down and think, okay, what is it that firstly that I need from a medical perspective to make sure that I've got everything that I need, like in terms of backup and backup, okay? Once that is there, then what kind of gear do I need in order to stay warm or stay dry, or whatever terrain it is that you're going in, you will have gear that would be suggested to you for that terrain. And then it's about organizing that and making sure that that is suitable, that you've got everything that you need. And that's what I did. I also teamed up with Kway, which is a South African brand that deals with outdoor clothing, and so they came up with a Kilimanjaro range, which they had, and so it was nice and snug and warm, and we had sleeping bags and all of the rest of it. So you then prepare your support group, you do everything that you can possibly do without going overboard. I mean, I'd say that you have to have a certain amount of faith, right? You've got to believe that you're going to be fine, because you're not going to be able to prepare for every single eventuality, right? Like, life has no guarantees, but you just got to make sure that you are prepared as best as possible. And then that was now the planning before actually going up to Kilimanjaro. What you need when you are on the mountain is very different. What you need when you are on that mountain or embarking on any kind of journey which is hard like that is a hell of a lot of patience. I tell you, after day one, we arrived at the registration gates, and we were then started our journey on a lovely, smooth, tarred road paving, and it was great. We're going through that in the forest, and then shortly after that, about 10 minutes into the journey, that path stopped abrupt, and then all of a sudden it was gravel, and then the gravel went and became rocks, and the paths got smaller, more narrow, more steep, more rocky, more dangerous. But the views around us, the energy that we felt around us on the mountain was absolutely spectacular. We started at the base of Kilimanjaro, which is in the rainforest. We could hear the waterfalls from miles away, the monkeys, just a cacophony of sounds within the forest of birds and monkeys and animals. It was just absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. We then trekked after 4, 5, 6 hours. I think we got to a point where I was like, okay, I think I can go home now. I was like, what did I get myself into? 6 hours in the journey, we are now close to our camp. It had been cold already from the gate, because Kilimanjaro is more than 5,000 meters above sea level. And so it is extremely, extremely cold up there. And I was ready to throw in the towel. And this is where your grit and your patience comes into play, because it is hard, and you've got to prepare yourself for the fact that it will be hard. And when you do that, you then have to employ the patience to push through the hard times. And yes, I felt like quitting. I felt like quitting on day one, but I would tell myself, just go a little bit more and then see how you feel. And then the ultimate for me was to say, was to trick myself or to tell myself, just see if you can make it to the first base camp, if you can, or camp, if you can make it past day one and get to the camp. If you still by tomorrow morning feel, that you don't want to do it, then don't do it. And this is me now negotiating and bargaining with myself. I was bargaining with myself from the start gate already. So there I was after day one, and boy, am I glad that I pushed through, because it taught me persistence and patience in face of difficult situations, in face of actual physical challenges. That was really hard. It teaches you grit. It teaches you to stick in there, because you can't just cop out. Because what I realized after day one was then if I cop out, I still have to get down, right? So it's still going to be a long, hard journey. So regardless, it's going to be long and hard. I decided to keep on. Day two was probably the worst day. Had diarrhea on the mountain, which was not, I was like holding everything in. I was just like, oh, please, 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 just get me to a loo. And there were no loos in sight. So, you have to face realities such as those. But I also have to say something about my porters, the porters that were actually with me, the 4 guys that were assigned to me to help get me to the top. Tanzanian men who just looked after me with such love, with such support. I truly did feel like their little sister. They checked on me every minute of the way. Are you okay? Do you want something to eat? Would you like something to drink? Are you warm enough? At one stage, one was rubbing my back. They were just absolutely the most beautiful souled people. And I'm so happy that I got to share that journey with them, because that really did feel like a fraternity, like a brotherhood. And they really did sort of envelop me in their love and in their protection and their care. After 5 days of trekking, we made it to base camp. Now, base camp is the last camp that you can actually sleep at before you go and you summit. So generally, you arrive at base camp, you rest, and the next morning, before the sun comes up, you are up, you are dressed, and you climb for the next 5 hours before you get to the summit. However, when we arrived in base camp, after trekking through 4 hours of a snow blizzard, and we actually got to just be amongst this, I'm just trying to find the words to exclaim the incredible beauty that was up there, but not just a physical beauty, but also a beautiful silence. So it had snowed quite a lot, so it was all white, and all you saw were these black crows everywhere, but an incredible silence. It was silence with a slight wind blowing, like an Arctic wind blowing, a cold wind, but it was beautiful. It was immensely, immensely beautiful. Upon arriving, I was as cold as an ice block. We had to quickly get my feet in hot water to heat up, put on socks, get under the blankets, and in the sleeping bag. My heart rate was high, and the doctors had been monitoring it, but I decided that I didn't want to go and climb the next morning. I just didn't feel that it was worth it for my body. And so that's also one piece of advice that I would give you if you are considering to go and do anything adventure related. Always listen to your body. For me, it wasn't about reaching the summit. It wasn't about pushing myself to say, I have to reach the summit. I have to reach the summit. For me, it was about the journey. It was about the journey of actually going. It was the journey of proving to myself that I could do it. It was the journey of traveling together with people on an epic adventure. And it was the journey to be able to spread awareness and to campaign about this. So I felt that I had reached my peak. And I was happy to say, I've reached where I'm happy with being, and this is where my body feels like it's telling me to stop. And I stopped. So when everybody got up the next morning and they went to climb, I stayed behind and rested with my porters, and we danced and we sang, and we just enjoyed the silence and the beauty of being in the snow caps of Mount Kilimanjaro. I'm also glad that I didn't go because, unfortunately, due to bad weather conditions, many of the climbers that did go had to turn around halfway and come back because of blizzards. Also, our cameraman got quite sick, and he was a young guy, able-bodied, was his first time up the mountain as well, but due to altitude sickness, they also had to come down. So I'm very glad that I listened to my body when it was time to say stop. And that really is it in a nutshell. You know, you've got to surround yourself with the right people to make sure that you continuously have their support, because you're not going to be able to do this alone. You're going to have to plan properly. Then you're going to have to prepare. You've got to prepare mentally, and then you've got to prepare physically. And once you've done all the preparation and you are now on your journey, you've got to have patience. You've got to have lots of patience. Know that there's going to be times where it's going to be really tough and you probably wish that you'd never taken on this journey before. But it will be so, so, so worth it. It really will be. And, you know, nothing ever worthwhile comes easy. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things of why we decide to do these crazy, crazy things. It's that sense of achievement and fulfillment that you get on the other side. I would also like to leave a word of encouragement to those who maybe feel that there won't be that support system for them. There won't be that help for them. If you continue to visualize and see in yourself reaching your objectives and believing at first that it's possible within you, you will be attracted to the right people at the right time who will meet you on your journey and help you get to the top. My life has been a journey of magic because of this thought process of believing that we live in a benevolent universe. And though there are a lot of people who, you know, are ignorant of many things as it regards to disability and to access, there are also a lot of good people who are waiting and willing to be educated and helped so that they too know how to, have experience and know how to be empathetic towards everybody. I would definitely say that adventure travel is not for everybody, but if it's something that you have been really itching to do, dying to do, to experience something, find out as much as possible. And if someone else has done it, you can do it too. There really is no stopping us in this world. So, as for me, Taryn Tomlinson, adventurer at heart, traveler, I wish you a speedy journey to your destination. I hope that you take the chances that makes you feel alive, and that as far as possible, you live life to the absolute best of your capabilities. If you would like to follow some of our journey and just stay in touch, please do contact me at Able to Travel. So this is on our Facebook or on our Instagram. The handle is at Able to Travel, and that's numeral 2, not the letters 2TO, but the numeral 2. And then on email, I'm at info@abletotravel.co.za. Thank you so much for allowing me to share some of my story with you. I hope that you found those tips valuable, that you can utilize it. And with those tools in your hand, those tips I call tools. So with those tip tools in your hand, go out there and live bold.